You ever get that feeling? Like you're hanging out with a friend, totally platonic, and then suddenly, bam, there's this energy shift.
Oh, I know exactly what you mean. It's that wait a minute moment where you start to wonder if maybe, just maybe, there's something more simmering beneath the surface.
Yes. And today we're taking a deep dive into that very phenomenon, that fascinating and often confusing territory where the lines between friendship and romantic love can get blurry.
It's a topic that's both relatable and endlessly intriguing.
Totally. And you've sent over the most interesting research and articles on this very thing.
I have a feeling you're going to enjoy digging into these.
I'm ready. So let's start by defining our terms a bit. We often hear those two concepts, friendship and romantic love, used almost interchangeably. But are they really all that different?
Well, they're definitely intertwined, but there are some key distinctions. One of the sources I sent you defined friendship as being built on shared values, mutual respect, a genuine enjoyment of each other's company, and importantly, all of that without the pressure of romantic or sexual attention.
Right, so it's like that feeling of, I've got your back, but without all the complications of romance.
Exactly. There's a comfort and ease that comes with that kind of connection. You can be yourself, quirks and all, and know that you're accepted for who you are.
Okay, so that's our baseline. Trust, shared interests, mutual respect. But where does that shift into romantic territory happen? What does the research say about how we define that?
That's where things get really interesting. According to several of the articles, the shift usually involves the introduction of a few key elements, primarily physical attraction, that undeniable spark.
The butterflies in your stomach kind of spark.
Precisely. And coupled with that physical attraction, there's often a desire for a different kind of emotional intimacy than what you share with other friends, a deeper level of vulnerability and connection.
It's like friendship, plus this whole other layer of intensity and longing that's specific to that person.
You hit the nail on the head. It's not just about enjoying their company anymore. It's about craving their presence, their attention, their affection.
And sometimes those feelings develop gradually, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not always an instant lightning bolt moment.
That's what's so fascinating about this whole dynamic. Sometimes it does hit you out of the blue, but more often than not, it's a slow burn. One article I read called it the incidental intimacy effect.
Incidental intimacy. I like that. Tell me more.
It's those shared experiences, those deeper conversations, that growing awareness of each other's vulnerabilities that can gradually fan the flames of attraction.
So those deeper layers, they can really sneak up on you, can't they? You think you're just in the friend zone hanging out and then boom, love sneaks in.
Yeah.
But how do you know for sure? How do you separate those fleeting what ifs from like a genuine shift in feelings?
Right. I mean, everyone's felt that little flutter of, maybe there's something more here. But separating genuine attraction from, say, just enjoying someone's company, that can be tricky.
Super tricky. So does the research offer any guidance on how to spot the difference? Are there like telltale signs that a friendship might be tiptoeing towards something more?
There are actually some really interesting indicators that came up in the studies I shared with you. One that particularly stood out was the concept of emotional bid.
Emotional bid. Okay, I'm intrigued. Break that down for me.
Basically, it boils down to paying close attention to how much effort the other person is making to connect with you on an emotional level. It's about going beyond surface level interactions and really trying to tap into your inner world.
Interesting. So, like, how does that actually play out in a friendship? What does that look like in action?
Okay, let's say you're going through a rough time, right? A friend who's just being friendly might offer a quick, hey, that sucks, or try to distract you with something fun. But a friend who might be developing deeper feelings, they're the ones who will really lean in, they'll listen with their whole heart, offer genuinely thoughtful advice, maybe even just sit with you in that space of discomfort without trying to fix it.
It's about the quality of the attention and support, not just the gesture itself.
Exactly. They're not just there for the highlight reel. They're there for the messy, vulnerable moments, too.
Which I imagine can create an incredible sense of intimacy and closeness.
It can. And speaking of closeness, another thing that came up a lot in the research was physical touch. Now, before everyone starts analyzing every hug and high five,
Yeah, let's not get carried away.
right, it's not about overthinking every interaction, but it's more about noticing patterns and shifts in behavior. Like, do their hugs seem to linger a little longer than usual? Do they find excuses to make physical contact, like touching your arm during a conversation? Or do you notice them subtly gravitating toward you in group settings?
It's like physical closeness becomes another language you speak,
Right.
conveying a deeper level of connection.
You got it. It's a subtle dance, for sure. But while those signs, the emotional bid, the physical touch, can be pretty telling, you know what the most significant indicator often is. How you feel when you're around this person.
Oh, absolutely. Do you feel those butterflies when they're near? Do you find yourself thinking about them even when they're not around? Those are pretty strong indicators.
Yeah. They can be, but here's the catch. Sometimes we can get a little carried away with our interpretations. We might misinterpret a friendly gesture as something more because deep down, we're hoping for it to be true.
Oh, 100%. It's so easy to get swept up in those feelings and start seeing what you want to see, not necessarily what's actually there.
And that's where that reality check comes in. It's about taking a step back from the intensity of those emotions. Maybe even enlisting a trusted friend and asking yourself, am I viewing the situation objectively or am I letting my feelings cloud my judgment?
It's like holding up a mirror to your own heart and asking, okay, what's really going on here? But even when you do manage to get real with yourself, there's still that looming question of, okay, what if it is real? What then?
That's where things get really complicated, right?
Because what happens if one person catches feelings and the other doesn't? That's the ultimate friendship minefield.
Yeah, that fear of ruining a good friendship is completely valid.
It really does feel like the ultimate tightrope walk. On one hand, you've got this exciting potential for something more, but on the other hand, there's that terrifying possibility of jeopardizing a friendship you really cherish. So how do we handle that? What does the research suggest is the best way to navigate those choppy waters?
Well, pretty much every single source I came across emphasized one key element above all else: communication.
Okay, that makes sense. Communication is key in any relationship, right? But when it comes to this kind of situation, it feels way easier said than done. Where do you even start? Like, how do you bring it up without making things super awkward?
Right. You don't exactly want to blurt it out over brunch. One of the therapists they interviewed for one of the studies, she said the key is to approach that conversation with a balance of honesty, vulnerability, and a good dose of realism.
So no grand romantic gestures then. More like, hey, I've been having these feelings lately and I wanted to talk to you about it.
Exactly. No sweeping declarations or ultimatums. It's about being authentic and upfront about what you're experiencing without putting any pressure on the other person to reciprocate those feelings.
It's about creating a safe space for an honest conversation.
Exactly. And that honesty in itself can be incredibly powerful, even if the other person's feelings don't happen to align perfectly with yours in that moment.
Because at least it's out in the open, right? No more tiptoeing around those feelings or wondering what if.
Exactly. But of course, even with the best communication, there's still that very real fear of, okay, what if those feelings aren't reciprocated? Can we come back from that? Can the friendship survive?
Which brings us back to that minefield we talked about earlier.
It's a valid concern, and that's where setting really clear expectations comes in. It's not just about expressing your feelings. It's about figuring out together what you both need moving forward.
Okay, I'm really interested in this. How do you actually go about setting those expectations, especially when emotions are running high?
Well, a lot of the advice boiled down to having those what-if conversations before anyone makes a move. Like, what if you decide to give it a go, but it doesn't work out romantically? Can you come back to a place of genuine friendship? What are your individual needs and boundaries, both within a romantic context and outside of it?
It's like you're drawing up a relationship roadmap together, acknowledging that there might be some detours and bumps along the way.
Precisely. And by having those open, honest dialogues right from the start, you're demonstrating respect for each other and for the friendship itself. You're acknowledging that this is valuable regardless of what happens next.
That's such a great point because at the end of the day, that foundation of friendship, of mutual care and respect, that's what allows you to even consider taking that risk in the first place.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
This has been such an insightful deep dive. We've explored the subtle signs of attraction, the importance of reality checks, the power of open communication, and the courage to set clear expectations. So much great information to digest. If you had to leave our listeners with just one key takeaway, one nugget of wisdom from all this research, what would it be?
I think it boils down to this. Navigating the shift from friendship to romance can be a bit of a minefield, there's no doubt about it. But at its core, it's all about staying true to yourself, honoring your feelings, respecting the other person's boundaries, and above all else, prioritizing honest, open communication every step of the way.
So well said. And hey, isn't there something exciting about a little bit of risk in life? Especially when it involves someone you already care about deeply.
100%. The key is to approach that risk mindfully, with empathy, and an openness to wherever the journey might lead.
And to our amazing listeners out there, the next time you find yourselves feeling that little flicker of what if with a friend, come back to this conversation. Remember that it's okay to embrace the complexity, to have those sometimes awkward conversations, and most importantly, to stay open to the possibilities. You never know where that path might lead.
What she said. Every relationship is unique. Every journey unfolds in its own way. And sometimes the most unexpected detours lead to the most incredible destinations.
Beautifully put. A huge thank you to our expert for joining us today on this fascinating deep dive into the wonderful and often confusing world of friendship and the potential for something more. And to our listeners, until next time, happy exploring.